There we go. So, all right. So a few Zoom reminders as we get started this morning. Some of you have seen these. So the first thing to do, and I realize you're all muted, so it's going to be hard to do this, is to check your volume. You remember that your microphone is different from your speakers. Right. So if you're having trouble hearing things, that is not about your microphone, that's about your speakers. So if you're on an iPad, the volume buttons are on the edge of the iPad. You just have to toggle up or toggle down to get louder or softer. If you are on a laptop, you should see this little icon in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on it, you should be able to drag you'll want to drag to the right to get a higher number and make it louder. So that's to increase your speaker volume if you're having trouble hearing. I don't think you will. I think we have good strong speakers today. There are two views for you to choose from when we're not sharing screen, gallery view and speaker view. On the PC in the upper right hand corner, you'll see what the views are. In the iPad, it's in the upper left hand corner. Whatever view you are in, the opposite view is what shows up on the screen. So if you are in gallery view, it will say speaker view. In other words, that's how you get to speaker view. If you are in speaker view, click on it and you'll get into gallery view. Gallery view allows you to see all of those tiles so you can see more folks as they join and stuff. Microphones, I do have the power to mute everyone and we'll use it if we are having trouble hearing. When you are muted, you'll see this red slash through your microphone, and that's on the toolbar of Zoom. On the PCs, it's down in the lower part of your screen. If you just take your mouse down to the lower part of the screen, you'll see that microphone icon. On the iPad, it's up in the upper part of your screen. To unmute, you can just click on that icon and it will unmute you. I can't unmute you. I have the power to keep you quiet. I don't have the power to let you have noise. So you have to take on that responsibility yourself. And then the other thing is if you do have a question or you want to make a comment, under the reactions icon, you should see the raise hand option, and I'll be watching for that. Shell will be watching for that. And if you have questions, we'll try to get to you as soon as possible. And again, that's just a way to not interrupt the flow of things, and just be patient. We'll get to you as soon as there's a good point of when to do that. There'll be times when you're going to be asked to share something, so you might want to use that raise hand icon. During PowerPoints like this one, if you're wanting to see more tiles on the side or you can't see tiles on the side, there's a couple of ways you can get those tiles to appear for you. If you see at the top of the screen, there's this green bar and then it says view options. And if you click on that drop down view options, you'll see this option side by side. If that's not checked, you'll want to check it, and what it will do then is it will provide the opportunity for you to see tiles on one side, PowerPoint on the other. Now, if you want to see more tiles, then if you put your mouse in this red circle area, you should get a double-headed arrow with the arrows pointing left and right. You can hold your mouse button down and drag, and that'll make the PowerPoint smaller, but give you more room for tiles so you can see more people. So it's just really your preference how you want to take a look at that. You can also adjust the zoom ratio under view options. And again, that will make some difference in terms of what you're seeing. If you want to see more of the presentation, you maybe want to go to a higher percentage so you can see the words better. But again, I think you won't have any trouble seeing the words and such on these PowerPoints. Okay, so other than that, we'll have some directions for you as we go along. If you're so inclined, you want to see who's all on and you're like, oh, that scrolling is just driving me crazy. If you click on participants on your toolbar, and we're up to 52 now, you should see a list of the participants show up on the right hand side of your monitor. Chatting, we're gonna, I would say, yeah, these are some folks you maybe haven't seen for a long time, but if you start chatting with them, it is disruptive of the presentation and such. So if you can hold off on that, we'll have some opportunities for you to visit with folks. So don't worry, you'll get a chance to see them. So, okay, so I think with that, Shell, I'm going to spotlight you so you can kick this off. And don't forget to unmute, Shell. Oh, come on now, spotlight here. All right.
Well, good morning. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sister Michelle Balick. I commonly go by Sister Shell. And it's my privilege to serve as the coordinator for the Franciscan Common Venture Service Program and to welcome all of you, whether you come from near or far. And this is a virtual celebration, and what a monumental occasion that we have to gather today. 50 years, I said something to a colleague from the Federation, and she goes, 50 years. Wow, you were way ahead of the rest of us. But we're glad you're here. We wish it could be in person, but it's a gift to be able to connect, at least in this way. And so we'll make the best of it. You've already seen some familiar faces. You're probably going to meet a few new ones throughout the day. And as we were preparing for this, I kind of pondered, well, what's the importance of an anniversary? Whether it's 1 year or 50 years. I think they remind us of something that's important. They ask us to pause from all the busyness around us and to recall our roots, to celebrate what's been accomplished, and to rededicate ourselves to what's important moving forward. And so our anniversary asks these same things of us, for the next 50 years or more. So these past months, perhaps you've been reading in little tidbits of history and testimonials posted on Facebook, YouTube, in the Footprints newsletter, as well as the Common Venture e-newsletter. There's much to be thankful for. And so I want to start our celebration. And firstly, I'd like to introduce Sister Brenda Whetstone, a member of our Dubuque Franciscan leadership team. So Brenda.
Well, good morning and welcome to everyone. As Shell said, I'm Sister Brenda, and I'm one of the vice presidents for the Dubuque Franciscans. And it is a distinct honor and privilege to welcome you all to the 50th anniversary online celebration of the Franciscan Common Venture Program. Today is a pretty important milestone for our Franciscan community history. For 50 years, the Dubuque Franciscan women, religious and laity, have shared a common journey, providing loving service, promoting gospel values, building relationships, and building community locally, nationally, and internationally. Indeed, this is a noteworthy endeavor and a good reason for celebration. So I'm glad everyone could make it. Thanks for taking time from your busy schedules or your busy retired life to join us for this occasion. And it is so wonderful to see and be in the company of so many friends and sisters and to reconnect, reminisce, pray together, and continue imagining what another 50 years for this program would look like. Sister Michelle and the planning committee have planned an exciting program for all of us. So thanks for coming. We're grateful for your presence with us today, and just enjoy the celebration. It's good to be with you.
Thank you, Sister Brenda. In the materials sent out to you, we'd asked you to create in some way a little prayer space around you today. I have my little candle going. You might have a little keepsake from your service. I brought a nice necklace that I got when I was in Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, just to have in front of you to kind of call to mind all of those things, and the special prayer card that we sent out to you. So as this prayer, our opening prayer, is really recognizing the different directions. And so as each direction is mentioned, if you could acknowledge that direction in some way, either turn or place your hand in that direction, some way to recognize that direction. And again, you're going to be muted. And the reader will pray the response, but you can pray along because you're going to be muted. And so just ask you to take a couple of deep breaths, inhaling the Spirit, exhaling that Spirit to share with the world. Inhaling that Spirit, exhaling that Spirit to share with the world.
Let us be present to the east. The direction of the sunrise represents the birth of new things. It is associated with matters of the soul. We are present to all the volunteers in our service sites over the years from the east: Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Indiana, Zambia. Creator God, we give thanks for the gifts of the East, the blessings held in new endeavors and beginnings. And we respond, we offer today's seeds of service for future fruits of justice.
Let us be present to the South. This is the direction of growth and learning, of compassionate care for others. We are present to all the volunteers and our service sites over the years from the South: Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, West Virginia, El Salvador, St. Lucia, Honduras. Creator God, we give thanks for the gifts of the South, the blessings held in our lived kinship with all, the mutuality between serving and served. Please respond. We offer today's seeds of service for future fruits of justice.
Let us be present to the west. It is the direction of the sunset, representing adulthood and the harvest, maturity and living out of our values. We are present to all the volunteers in our service sites over the years from the west: Montana, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, South Dakota. Creator God, we give thanks for the gifts of the West, the blessings held in authentically witnessing to the Franciscan values of conversion, prayer, poverty, minority, and community. And we respond, we offer today's seeds of service for future fruits of justice.
Let us be present to the north. It is the direction of our ancestors and the wisdom of our elders. We are present to all the volunteers and our service sites over the years from the north: Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska. Creator God, we give thanks for the gifts of the north, the blessings held in the wisdom of those who have gone before us, guiding us into the future. We respond, we offer today's seeds of service for future fruits of justice.
Let us be present to Mother Earth under our feet. It is where we have come from. It is our home. We are present to all the places our volunteers call home. Creator God, we give thanks for the gifts of Mother Earth, our home, the blessings held in creation's beauty, reflections of your divine love. and we respond, we offer today seeds of service for future fruits of justice.
Let us be present to Father Sky, the spirit that hovers over and around us. It gives us the vantage to see Earth as one place, one land, one home for all. It births forth dreams and visions. We are present to the spirit that has inspired and continues to inspire each of us to share our gifts with all. Creator God, we give thanks for the gifts of Father Sky, the blessings held in the recognition of our oneness with all creation and in the inspiration of the Spirit. We respond, we offer today's seeds of service for future fruits of justice.
From the Assisi compilation, St. Francis eats with a brother who claims he is dying of hunger. One time, in the very beginning, at the time when Blessed Francis began to have brothers, he was staying with them at Rivo Torto. One night, around midnight, when they were all asleep in their beds, one of the brothers cried out, saying, "I'm dying, I'm dying." Startled and frightened, all the brothers woke up. Getting up, Blessed Francis said, "Brothers, get up and light a lamp." After the lamp was lit, Blessed Francis said, "Who was it who said, 'I am dying'?" "I'm the one," the brother answered. "What's the matter, brother?" Blessed Francis said to him, "Why are you dying?" "I'm dying of hunger," he answered. So that brother would not be ashamed to eat alone, Blessed Francis, a man of great charity and discernment, immediately had the table set, and they all ate together with him. This brother, as well as the others, were newly converted to the Lord and afflicted their bodies excessively. After the meal, Blessed Francis said to the other brothers, "My brothers, I say that each of you must consider his own constitution, because although one of you may be sustained with less food than another, I still do not want one who needs more food to try imitating him in this. Rather, considering his constitution, he should provide his body with what it needs. Just as we must beware of overindulgence in eating, which harms body and soul, so we must beware of excessive abstinence even more, because the Lord desires mercy and not sacrifice." And he said, "Dearest brothers, great necessity and charity compelled me to do what I did, namely that out of love for our brother, we ate together with him, so he wouldn't be embarrassed to eat alone."
Shell, you need to unmute.
Sorry. Like Francis, it is out of love that we serve one another, and often surprising changes happen in our own lives. So let us take some time to ponder in silence the fruits that some of our volunteers have experienced in giving service. We are grateful for all that has been, for the witness of Saints Francis and Clare, the many gifts of the Franciscan Common Venture program. And so we pray along silently our anniversary prayer.
Loving Creator, our hearts are full of gratitude and praise as we celebrate 50 years of the many gifts shared with us during Franciscan Common Venture through prayer, community, and service.
Thank you for the gifts of openness and willingness to travel and risk new experiences, to share our culture and learn from those with different lives and dreams, to grow in community with our Common Venture team and with those who shared our work and play.
We learn to move out of our comfort zone and into the world of another person, to be led and changed by stepping into an unknown and facing our fears, to answer the gospel call of being right relationship with creation, with those we served and those with whom we shared community.
We were called to go forth in mutuality and solidarity. In answering that call, we were transformed and received so much more than we gave.
Your spirit profoundly touched our hearts through our communal experience of service and still continues to shape and challenge us today.
Each day you call us to find new ways to plant the seeds of service. Today, we ask that just as we responded then, we may always be open to your call and to the hidden fruits of justice along the paths of life. Amen.
Our hearts truly are full of gratitude, especially today. We close this time of prayer with a video called Grateful. Please keep yourselves muted, but as you learn the refrain, feel free to sing along. The musicians Nemo Patel and Daniel Namud brought together dozens of people from around the world to create this beautiful video and song. It's a celebration of our spirits and that all in life is a blessing. This music video created within a week by a team of volunteers. So look at what's possible with a team of volunteers. It shines a light on the small things that make up the beautiful fabric of our lives.
You're my life, you're my breath, you're a smile, you're my guest. You're the earth, you're the sun, you're the grass, you are love. You're my hands, you're a bug, you're my eyes, you're a hug. You're the light in the dark, you're the spark, you are fun. You're my mom, you are water, you're the stars, you're my daughter. You're my friend till the end, you're my dreams, you're my father. You're the ants on the ground, the miracles that surround. I'm feeling it all around, the hemisphere in the clouds. You're my pain, you're my sorrow, you're my hope for tomorrow. You're the strength when I'm hollow, you're the path that I follow. You're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss. The gift to realize that everything
all
is a
that
gift.
I am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all. Grateful for it
You're the
all.
blessings every time I try to count. You're the lessons that I learn every time I turn around. You're the water when I'm burned every time I think I found everything I'm looking for. You're the sign saying stop to take a bow and keep moving forward and start looking towards your heart. It'll open all the doors and only then you'll start to hear the world singing chorus with your mind and heart. Aligned in purpose, everything
All
will feel
that I
gorgeous.
am, all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all, for it all.
Every
sit and pray, cause what I have is more than I deserve or could ever imagine. How do I give back to all of this magic and spread the love so everybody can have it? Doesn't matter if I'm rich or poor, if I got a family or if I'm all alone. Bad things happen, I can just complain and moan. But there's a million things that I can be grateful for.
So I lift up my hands now, and I open my heart, and my gratitude goes out to everything near and far. All that I am,
Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I look deep down and feel all the blessings. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I'm grateful for it all. It's amazing. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I look deep down and feel all the blessings. Everything I am and everything I see, everything I hope and everything I dream, everything I feel and everything I be. I'm grateful for it all. It's amazing. You're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss, the gift to realize that everything is a gift.
Wait, one more. This is for y'all.
all that I am.
All that I've been.
It's a blessing.
It's so amazing.
I am grateful
When I emailed Nemo Patel to ask permission to use this video, he said he had a great affinity for St. Francis and that he's currently working on another like music video for the Franciscan Peace Prayer. So I thought that was pretty great. So on with the celebration. And as I said, we hope to have the celebration in person, you know, at the Mount. It would have been great, but as one of my coworkers says, COVID times call for COVID measures. And so to start off with today, we thought we'd start with a fun poll. So Lisa, if you would launch that, please. And there should be 2 questions on it. You may have to scroll down when it shows up. And be sure you hit submit.
So 48 of the 52 have voted. Last call for votes. Okay, and I'm sharing results.
Oh, Lisa, you'll have to tell me what it is. It's not coming up.
Oh, it's
on
not
my-
sharing? Oh, it's, let's see.
It's not sharing on mine. I don't know if anybody else is seeing it.
Oh,
can
yeah, they are all seeing it. So 59% said yes, they knew what Zoom was before this year. And 94% of you are talking with your families and friends this year. I don't know what you were doing before that.
Oh, well, you know, it's just the Zoom language has really crept in this time of pandemic. So it's not surprising that we're all using Zoom and talking, connecting with family and friends more. Well, we'll do our best to make this virtual experience a great one. So we wanted to take a look back over the last 50 years through spoken and written word, photos, and song. And it was impossible to have every single Common Venture team represented. But I think the spirit of Franciscan Common Venture will come through in this video. So as you watch and listen to this montage, feel free to place, brief memories or responses in the chat. So Lisa, if you want to launch our celebration video.
And then just a reminder for those of you who may not know, to get to chat, if you take your mouse down to the lower part of your screen on a PC, and there you should see an item called chat. And that'll open up a little chat window. And when it says to everyone, when you type in a message there and press your enter or return key on your computer, then that message will go out to everyone. So that's how you use chat. All right, and let's see this video.
Well, I think one of the greatest memories always was when we gathered for our orientation and these teams came together. They'd never met each other before, of women and of sisters. And when we would get into all of our cars, and sometimes that'd be like 15 or so, and we'd take off and the sisters would be singing for us. Farewell, they'd be sending us off, and you truly felt like you were going on a mission trip, being missioned by the sisters, that they were part of it. And there was this tremendous energy and anticipation because we didn't know each other that well. And so you knew that this group would have to create community with one another. And so you always had this kind of dream that it would all work. And we'd be together for 6 weeks, and that's a long time.
What's been, just give me one good feeling experience that you've had with the group.
Well, I think it's been laughter. We've shared a lot of laughter with our group. We do a lot of practical jokes on everybody, and it's really kept us happy. And I think that's really important in community, to be happy. And I think we all are, and we should laugh a lot.
Thank you, Lisa.
Music is love, love is music, if you know what I mean. People who believe in music are the happiest people I've ever seen. So clap your hands, stomp your feet, and shake your tambourine. Lift your voices to the sky, God loves you when you sing. Oh, I believe in music. Oh, I believe in love. Oh, I believe in music. Oh, I believe in love.
I think a lot of it are things that I already knew about myself, but had lost touch with, perhaps. Having, as you know, served in the Peace Corps many, many, many years ago, and having worked in other programs, I knew a lot about working in things. I worked in inner city Atlanta and such. So I knew about a lot of this stuff, but I had lost track of a lot of it because time for career, family, kids, that sort of thing. So I think I learned to get back in touch with that part of me that could grow by getting into uncomfortable situations. And that's probably the biggest thing. Now, there as well, there's always working in other communities, a tremendous amount of learning about oneself when you learn about their culture, how their families operate, how their situations are with their government, what kind of daily problems that they have. And then that always offers reflection on oneself. And certainly that's the way I approach it, that it gives me a chance to reevaluate my own situation. And those are probably the biggest things that I would say. They sort of go together, I think, too. And so I did kind of touch on that. I think the biggest thing, and again, not something that was totally new, but at the same time, something that was new and refurbishing itself in a way, was to learn about the diversity of cultures. And this diversity exists from outside one's own back door all the way to the mountains of Honduras. Any community that's different from what you're in has different kinds of perspectives, different kinds of experiences, different kinds of people. And so that gave me an opportunity to look at what they were like. And for me, one of the things that I again learned was that there's tremendous similarity between all groups of any of these communities. Family and love, illness, happiness, birth, death, they all have those things within their community. Religion and faith, in one form or another in every community. How the community structures itself, how they have friends, how the government works. All these are very similar things that one can pick out and a way of learning about those cultures. At the same time, by recognizing those similarities, you're also able then to see how those things affect the people. What's the relative importance of those things and how it affects their lives, just.
Well, so I had a textbook base of knowledge on the struggles people face in the world, and some in-person knowledge, but really being immersed in a community that was unfamiliar to me that I had to get to learn really helped me to understand the struggles people were facing. And now it wasn't just like a distant stranger or a case study, but it was my neighbors and my friends. And so seeing those barriers and those systemic issues play out in real life to people I cared about really helped to ignite that drive within me further, which is how I decided to continue on in social work. But I also learned that despite all the challenges in the world, there's always joy to be found, and that in a community that really supports each other, that's where resiliency lies. And you can get through a lot if you have a community on your back. There's two that really come to mind, and they really stem from the relationships I was able to build while I was there. Some of my favorite times were just with our little community, with me and the other Franciscan sisters down there, and how we would make time, intentional time each week to just cook meals for each other and pray with each other and play cards or watch TV together. And it was just a really great example of like healthy friendships and holiness in your everyday life that like I continue to strive for now. And just like giving that gift of time to other people. And then another great memory was with a student that I had worked with. So as I was leaving, a lot of the students wrote little notes to say goodbye. And one of them left a note saying, "Thank you for teaching me respect," which is not something I had deliberately done. And I was really proud of him for acknowledging that. But just being able to see like his growth over the whole school year, how he was not able to learn like respecting others is important, but he really grew a lot in his own self-respect and how he thought he was more important in the end, and he was able to help others and bring them along with him. And that really meant a lot to me.
Well, I can begin by saying that when I mentioned that I was going to have an interview because of the anniversary of the Franciscan Common Venture, I mentioned your name, the person who was going to interview, and Abby is interviewing. Abby! Entonces, your spirit is alive and well in Suchitoto. I could mention some other volunteers and get the same kind of response. What happens at our center or here in Suchitoto, given its post-war reality, is the healing that takes place really needs to be expressed in loving gestures, to be reaffirmed by people who also were involved subconsciously in the minds of the people with the war. When young people from the United States come and make known to them that they really did not know what they were participating in, nor did their parents, when our Civil War was going on, when the people here realize there would have been a civil war even without the United States participation, but it wouldn't have been as long or as cruel without the participation of the US government. So when you come and you admit the same realization that it's good for them to hear, I think you have nourished us, and I think you've been nourished by us too. Our resiliency, our desire to love back, to not judge. I mean, we didn't think you ever wanted a war. That's good for us to realize, to be able to hug you and know that we're all connected. Even people who come from places that acted so cruelly. The seeds of service, I think we have to recognize if anybody volunteers to come here, their seeds already budding. It's not that they haven't been on fertile ground. You have to really be grateful for the life that before you came here. Something was planted long before you got off the plane and into my arms. No, the seeds of service are flowering long before we see the fruits. But we see the fruits giving new seeds. It's learning. I think the fruit is, I want you learning to love more maturely. That's the fruit for me. And the fruit for you is being accepted as a loving person, and vice versa.
So, did you see yourself or folks that you knew in that in the photos that came flying by? We hope this little montage has stirred up lots of fun and profound memories for you. As I said before, I often hear from volunteers when they return what a life-changing experience it's been. They feel they've received far more than they gave, and it seems like they keep unpacking it for many years. There's something mysterious and unexpected that happens when we do serve others with humility and in solidarity. relationships are formed, and justice can take root. Which brings us to our speaker for today, Sister Pat Farrell. I'm proud to claim Pat as one of the sisters, my sisters in congregation, but also as a former FCVer, having served at Midlothian in Chicago in the program's initial year of 71, followed by volunteering in 2 more experiences in Iowa, the Iowa Troubadours in 74, and at a parish in San Antonio in 77. Sister Pat has taught religious education, served in pastoral work and community organizing with the Hispanic community in San Antonio. She spent 20 years ministering in Chile and in El Salvador in the areas of parish life, human rights, women's issues, mental health, and holistic healing. She has served Spanish-speaking communities in Chicago and Omaha. Her work as a psychotherapist has led her to serve a variety of immigrant and refugee groups, survivors of war and torture, as well as work with women and men religious. Sister Pat served as a vice president in our congregation's leadership from 2008 to 2014. She also served in the presidency of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious from 2010 to 2013. Currently, she ministers in Gracias, Honduras. In addition to serving the people there, she has assisted with the congregation's Sister Water Project trips to Honduras. Sister Pat earned a BA in English from Briar Cliff and a master's degree in social work from Loyola in Chicago. Needless to say, with her depth of experience and wisdom, I know that her sharing with us this morning will give us much food for thought, inspiration, and challenge. Sister Pat.
Pat, you need to unmute.
Good morning, everyone. And after that very happy picture of what Common Venture has been, I am so delighted to follow that and to be with all of you. And another thing that truly delights me as we celebrate these 50 years of Common Venture is that we can do it while Sister Marie Treese is still living and breathing and walking among us, while we can still see her physical presence and remember the large spirit with which she began this program. So, and to have the opportunity to continue to recognize and to thank her. And I also want to express gratitude to the planning committee for this event, and especially to Shell, who has put a lot of work into this and who still continues to be the motor behind Common Venture, largely behind the scenes. So thank you, Shell. So I'm very happy to celebrate these 50 years, stepping back into this experience, walking around and what that was like and what it meant for us individually and for all of us as a community, and to look forward together to whatever comes next. I especially liked this theme, Seeds of Service, Harvest of Justice. And so I'm happy to reflect on that theme with you this morning. I think, first of all, that seed is such a wonderful image for this celebration of 50 years, because a seed somehow mysteriously carries within the pattern of its own unfolding future. And yet, the way it turns out depends so much on all that surrounds it and nourishes it and keeps it going. That's what we celebrate in this gathering. Next. So our revisiting the experience of service is an opportunity and to look back and to see what has sprung up, to see what remains, what has faded, what has deepened, and what we would like to take up again and carry forward with the perspective of all that we have lived and learned together in these 50 years. Next. The Common Venture dream from the beginning was to plant seeds of service. And as Peggy O'Neill just expressed in her video, if you found your way to Common Venture, that seed of service had probably already been growing in you. Next. Something in you had been ripening that found some resonance when you first heard about this service opportunity. Not everyone was drawn to Common Venture, but you were. So the seed was already in you. In fact, somehow you were the seed, and you still are the seed. Next. So you set out on this Common Venture journey, which clearly was an act of faith. It was a risk. It was an adventure. Next. An Irish saying, your feet will take you to where your heart is. And so you set out on the Common Venture journey without knowing where you were going, but probably found something there that your heart recognized as somehow familiar. It was a moment of unique openness and readiness, a moment of self-discovery. John Donahue says, every time you leave home, another road takes you into a world you were never in. You find yourself in a different way, more attentive to the self you bring along, your more subtle eye watching you. A new silence grows within you. And if you listen, you will hear what your heart would love to say. A journey can become a sacred thing. Travel in an awakened way, gathered wisely into your inner ground, so as not to waste the invitations which wait along the way to transform you. Next. Now, clearly in Common Venture, lots of seeds got scattered. Next. Seeds of service and seeds of people like each one of us. Now, I think that scattering is very significant. We heard the many places in the opening prayer that Common Venture was scattered towards. Nature does that. That's how plants give life and produce fruit. So as we celebrate today, think of the fruit that was produced in you when you were first scattered into a world of people and places and probably difficult situations unfamiliar to you. And for the congregation, we have never been the same since Common Venture, that Common Venture scattering that took us out of Dubuque and exposed us to cultures and needs we probably never knew. So many new ministries were born of that. And I think the community has been transformed because we were all scattered by Common Venture. So today we really celebrate that. What transformation happens personally when we get scattered to unknown places? We're vulnerable in new situations. We step out of business as usual and no longer find ourselves on automatic pilot. So it's a privileged moment that allows us to discover ourselves and a whole new world with fresh eyes. I always remember when Nancy Meyerhofer and I first went to Chile in 1980. And Nancy shared with me her first letter home. Nancy, I don't know if you remember this, but it's always stayed with me, excuse me, because what you said so interpreted my experience then and in other subsequent moments. She said, I keep bumping into the best of myself and the worst of myself. The best. Oh, didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I had that in me. And the worst, oh, I really didn't know what to do in that situation. I didn't handle that well. So both of those aspects are unique opportunities for us to discover ourselves. And probably much more important than discovering ourselves, we have discovered people and the world around us in new ways. If we are open, there are always surprises because life just doesn't conform to our expectations and stereotypes. So think for a moment of what you discovered in meeting people who were Native Americans, veterans, people with disabilities, children in need of tutoring, African Americans, prisoners, immigrants, and so on. The scattering is a place of encounter with real people and with real needs. And as one of the volunteers said, we meet them in the flesh with names and faces. So African Americans in general are now people you might have come to know in Mississippi or Chicago or Waterloo. It's Miss Lizzie in the used clothes store looking for something for her grandchildren, or Sasha on the playground who always seems to be fighting with someone and then goes home to an empty house till her mother gets off work hours later. In the real world of a culture different from our own, we are given the gift of discovering from the inside the beauty and the richness of customs and symbols not usually visible to outsiders, such as the giveaway tradition at some Native American funerals. Now, the good thing is when we step into the world of real people, we are in danger of having our perspectives changed and our stereotypes transformed and our judgments challenged. Again, a personal example of that. When Nancy and I began in Chile, at the time of the dictatorship, we began by visiting houses. We just went around and knocked on doors to get to know people. And in one house, a young woman invited us to come to a family party that night. And she said, my uncle will bring us home. We thought, oh, this is a great opportunity. We'll see how people in Chile celebrate their parties. So we went. And at the party, we started to notice that the uncle who was supposed to bring us home was drinking pretty heavily. So we talked to each other and decided we should ask him to take us home early while he could still pretty safely drive. And on the way home, he wanted to stop and walk on the beach. He was the driver. There wasn't a lot we could do. Anyway, so here I am walking along the beach in the dark with this man who had been drinking. And all of a sudden, he started to weep. And he said, I have tortured so many people in my life. And I just remember at that moment in the dark, my eyes flew open like that. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm walking in the dark on the beach with a drunk torturer. This can't be good. But at that moment, he started to pour out his heart. And he talked about the memories that flooded him and how he could no longer live with himself because of what he had done. And that's why he took to drinking. So what I learned that very early time in Chile was that perpetrators are not monsters. They are mostly hurting people who then hurt other people and are affected by what they've done. And they themselves also in need of healing. So the way our stereotypes, judgments, and perspectives are challenged is one of the great advantages of an experience like Common Venture. So returning to the theme, Seeds of Service, Harvests of Justice, I have to say when Shell first sent me that theme, I was intrigued with the question of, well, how do you get from service to justice? So Does service automatically produce justice? I wasn't sure. And as I sat with that question, what came to my mind was the title of a book by Beatrice Brutto. Next. Next. And next. Beatrice Brutto wrote a book called The Holy Thursday Revolution. So I'd like to just reflect on that a little bit. And what I'm going to say really is not the content of her book, because I read the book a long time ago and couldn't even find it again to use as a reference. But my reflections are kind of on the title of that book, which seems significant to me. The basic idea of her book is that the elements of service in Jesus washing his followers' feet at the Last Supper really provide a blueprint for a more just society. And that gospel account is a beautiful teaching of service and self-giving. So I want to continue reflecting on the question, how to understand service as the way to really a revolution. Can service lead to an upending of an unjust and unequal world order? Can it somehow bring about a different way of relating, a different social structure, a different human dynamic? Now, I don't think that happens automatically with common venture. Service experiences can be a sort of volunteer tourism, or they can be what sets us on the path of a deepening commitment to a life of service. I do think that a person who lives into Jesus' pattern of authentic service is gradually transformed and then becomes that presence that transforms the surrounding world into a more just and loving environment. However, I think that needs our awareness of the values embedded in service and a conscious intention to live them in our personal, communal, and public lives. So let's consider together the elements of service that Jesus taught at the Last Supper. Next. And next. John 13, they were at supper and Jesus got up from the table, removed his outer garments, and taking a towel, wrapped it around his waist. He then poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel he was wearing. Next. Do you understand, he said, what I have done to you? You call me Master and Lord, and rightly, so I am. If I then, the Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you should wash each other's feet. I have given you an example so that you may copy what I have done to you. Now we know that Jesus at this moment in the washing of the feet in the Last Supper is really anticipating his passion and death. And he's constructing meaning. He's teaching values, the values that matter most to him that he wants to leave as a legacy. So front and center here is the Paschal mystery, the core of our faith, and Jesus' humble love. Jesus' wisdom for the world, the legacy he wants to leave, teaching us to do as he did, to lay down our lives, to spend our lives, our energies in responding to the needs of others. In our lives are not our own. For whom, for what is the health and the energy and the resources that we have received as a gift? Learning the emptying, the kenosis of Jesus, the needs of others placed before our own, pouring ourselves out as Jesus poured out his life in service, emptying ourselves so that others can be filled. And knowing in the example of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus that death is a genuine path to life if it is simply the cost involved in real service, the path of prophets and martyrs. Not always easy, certainly with struggles. And in some of the common venture groups, there was little sense of success at the moment. So Jesus' example of the service of humble love really is a challenge to society's race to something bigger and better. And Jesus demonstrates that small is beautiful. When we look at society, looking after profit at all costs, and Jesus simply sharing and in presence, we see the world promoting personal comfort and ease, me first, individualism, and Jesus models the service of the common good. If the world were to operate in the spirit of Jesus' service of humble love, a more gentle and a more just human dynamic would reign on earth. A true revolution. Next. Service is personal. It is really seeing the other and really being seen. It is genuine encounter. And when Jesus at the Last Supper kneels before each of his disciples, one by one, looks them each in the eye, enters into their physical space, touches their feet, connecting, touching, literally. It's very personal. Now, you did that on Common Venture. If you think of a person you met, a world that you touched, a connection that changed you, just be with that question for a minute to allow some memories to come to mind. The personal aspect of service is a challenge to society that often makes individuals or groups of people invisible, just cogs in a wheel. We live in a capitalistic economic world order that renders a lot of people invisible and disposable, whose needs and rights are less important than the product that comes to us and at the price that we demand. The clothes we wear represent the invisibility of people in sweatshops with low wages, with no right to organize. The fruits on our table, put there with little recognition of the immigrants picking the grapes or digging the sweet potatoes. But if you were on a Common Venture team serving the migrant farm workers picking sugar beets in southern Minnesota, suddenly those people are no longer in the shadows, and their needs and struggles and insecurities are present when you pour sugar into the cookies that you're baking. So when Jesus really sees and touches each of his followers personally, that is a revolutionary gesture for a society in which those who are poor and marginalized just are not seen. Black lives do matter. All lives, all persons matter. But first, we really need to see each other. Now, as you know, Pope Francis talks frequently in this vein about the culture of encounter, which is, I think, his desire for both the church and the world. But he also said at the Second World Meeting of Popular Movements in Bolivia in 2015, the following: "We do not love concepts or ideas, we love people. When we look into the eyes of the suffering, when we see the faces of the endangered campesino, the poor laborer, the downtrodden native, the homeless family, the persecuted migrant, the unemployed young person, the exploited child, the mother who lost her child in a shootout because the barrio was occupied by drug dealers, the father who lost his daughter to enslavement. When we think of all those names and faces, our hearts break because of so much sorrow and pain. It moves us. It makes us attentive to others in an effort to move forward together. From those seeds of hope, patiently sown in the forgotten fringes of our planet, from those seedlings of a tenderness which struggles to grow amid the shadows of exclusion, great trees will spring up, great groves of hope to give oxygen to our world. End quote. So that kind of personal encounter that Pope Francis speaks of is the spirit of Jesus, and it is the spirit of common venture. It is to really see people and respond to their very real needs. It reminds me of Sister Kenneth personally encountering the children with multiple disabilities at Hills and Dales in Dubuque. It reminds me of my own first common venture experience visiting people with quadriplegic disabilities in the long-term care facility of Cook County Hospital. I had never before met a person in that condition. They were invisible to me. So Jesus' way of service invites us to see real, concrete human need. And in doing so, it connects us at the fundamental level of our shared humanity. I don't think it needs to be said that the people we serve are not perfect by any means. And it doesn't take long for any common venture team or any real life situation to quell the romanticism with which we might have begun. Jesus teaches service without judgment. He washed the feet of Judas Iscariot. Jesus' style of service is gratuitous. It's not earned by good behavior or by having acceptable viewpoints. There is indeed a revolution in that. As Margaret Wheatley has said, it's not our differences that divide us. It's rather our judgment of one another. Next. Another element of service. At the Last Supper, Jesus taught us the value of service, but he also gathered with his friends to share a meal in community. That table event reflects and makes present every other table gathering during Jesus' lifetime. The backdrop of this Last Supper is Jesus' consistent modeling of inclusive community. No one was to be excluded from his table, not tax collectors and sinners, not women, not foreigners, not Gentiles, not the ritually impure. All were to be welcomed as friends and equals. And again, in the backdrop that's present, Jesus' parable of the heavenly banquet. A servant is ordered to go out into the city streets and bring in the poor and the blind and the lame, anyone. Now, such radically egalitarian table sharing flies in the face of all the social conventions of any stratified society. Walter Brueggemann poses this situation. Think for a moment, if beggars came to your door, of the difference between giving them some food to go, or inviting them into your kitchen for a meal, or bringing them into the dining room to eat in the evening with your family, or of having them come back on Saturday night for a supper with a group of your friends. Some of those options would be unthinkable. Table fellowship is a map of economic discrimination, of social hierarchy, and of political differentiation. Jesus' life and teaching seen in the community of disciples gathered at a last meal calls us personally and collectively to a non-discriminating table that reflects a non-discriminating social order. The revolution of Holy Thursday invites the whole world to just and inclusive community around one table in radical equality. Next. Jesus called them aside and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their superiors exercise authority over them. It shall not be this way among you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant." Next. This is Jesus teaching about power, about importance, about authority. All human relationships involve power dynamics of one kind or another, but here Jesus redefines them. Power is simply the capacity to serve. The person with the greatest importance is the one who serves the community. Servant leadership, rather than domination and coercion, is the revolution our world desperately needs to establish right relationships of respect and of justice. And I won't spend time here reflecting on the social, political, and economic transformation that could happen if our world leaders lived Jesus' spirit of service. It's so obvious. What would happen simply if our lawmakers spent their energy in service of the common good rather than in getting elected and staying in power? However, I do think it's worth thinking a little bit more about the element of mutuality in power dynamics and relationships. Next. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "At the moment, you do not know what I'm doing, but later you will understand." "Never," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus replied, "If I do not wash you, you can have nothing in common with me." Now, once again, Peter didn't get it. He was unwilling to receive from Jesus, who was demonstrating a loving relationship among equals. Service is mutual. And if it is genuine, we know that we always receive as much or more than we give. And hasn't that consistently been our experience in Common Venture? However, that takes a certain kind of humility. Peter initially was not showing that. So here, I would like to just invite us to revisit an article often used in Common Venture's orientation entitled "Serving is Different from Helping and Fixing" by Rachel Naomi Raymond. This article suggests very eloquently that in helping and fixing, we approach people from a position of our own power and expertise. And that sets up a dynamic of inequality. To quote very briefly, "Helping others incurs debt. When you help someone, they owe you one. But serving, like healing, is mutual. There is no debt. I am as served as the person I am serving. When I help, I have a feeling of satisfaction. When I serve, I have a feeling of gratitude." Next. Gratitude, thanksgiving, Eucharist, breaking and sharing bread, and sharing lives among equals. That gesture is inseparable from washing feet. Both are transformative for our world. Both are a revolution. Next. We are personally refreshed and made new in the process, even as our service falls like the dew on those we come to serve. The seeds of service do indeed produce a harvest of justice, one person, one transformed life at a time. And the fruit that we can expect is joy. Next. It is a harvest of happiness. Next. Next. The joy of service is a deep interior joy where darkness and pain can also have a place. That kind of joy springs from an inner sense of rightness. And that is the joy that we bring to this celebration. Next. We don't know what the future of Common Venture might look like, but we celebrate with deep gratitude all of the fruits in the lives of volunteers and of people served. It is so beyond what any of us could have imagined. Next. Whatever the future, it will be a hand outstretched in service, living the spirit of Jesus' teaching at the Last Supper, stretching towards the fruits of justice. I would like to end these brief reflections with a song that is at least 50 years old. So you will hear that the words and some of the concepts probably aren't what we would use today, but the sentiments are certainly our prayer today as we give thanks for these 50 years of blessing.
We plow the fields and scatter the good seed on the land, but it is fed and watered by God's almighty hand. He sends the snow in winter, the warmth to swell the grain, the breezes and the sunshine, and soft, refreshing rain. All the gifts around us are sent from heaven above. Then thank the Lord, thank the Lord for all his love.
So thank you, Sister Pat, for your wonderful words that both challenge us and brings us back to the gospel, which we all know, but sometimes it's good to hear that articulated again and how it relates to the service that we give through Franciscan Common Venture. So it's both challenging and inspiring as we continue to find ways to give service in the spirit of Francis and Clare, following in the footsteps of Jesus. So thank you. We're going to break into small groups now, just random groups, to share on a couple of things. And so when you get into your group, if you would not spend a whole lot of time, but determine somebody who can report back if your group has a question for Sister Pat or a comment. And the questions we have is, first of all, briefly introduce yourself, where you're from, what your Common Venture service was and when. And then to move on to what from Sister Pat's presentation resonates with you. What is there something in what she presented that you find challenging, or how does it call you to serve today? So, a brief kind of introduction in your group, because there may be people that you don't know or haven't met yet. And then to share on what you heard from Sister Pat's presentation today. And you're going to have about 30 minutes for this. And Lisa, I would ask if you could give people like a 5-minute kind of alert, so that, if you do have a comment or a question, you can come back and either use the raise your hand feature or to put it in chat. And I've asked Lori Apple to kind of monitor the chat, and Lisa and I will kind of look for the raised hands. So, and Lisa,
directions.
Okay, I'm hoping everybody's back from their groups. Lisa, how many groups did we have?
I did 9 groups.
9 groups, okay. It might be just easier to go in order. So like if anybody from group 1, if they remembered what group they were in.
Okay.
If they had any comment or question, or if people just want to put in comments in the chat, you can do that as well. Or
if you want to raise your hand, we'll watch for that too.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Jane. I think we were group 1, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Just a few things that we talked about that struck us about Pat's talk was the idea of meeting the best and the worst of yourself. The idea of inclusivity there. Another person talked about seeing others and then also being seen by them. And then just the whole idea of the book, the Holy Thursday, and it really is a revolution that you had Jesus and Peter at the same table, kind of like having Democrats and Republicans at the same table, I guess. Community experiences, who we met along the way, some of the challenges. It can be great, but it can be messy. One of the things that towards then we talked more about was just the importance of service, and that within the world, we're really led by the examples of Christ, Francis and Clare, and then more locally, Mothers. And one of the things that we talked about was, I know next Tuesday, some people are on a call for preparing for gathering. And we thought it might be helpful if Pat had her comments in writing to share with us, so we could maybe reflect on some of that as we discuss moving forward within the community. So, so those were a few of the things that we talked about in our group.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Any other group or folks have anything?
I think we were group 6. This is Rosie Guerrero, and I'll just share on ours. I kind of took the notes for our group. And so some of the themes that popped up, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Pat for just an awesome presentation. Just so much there that I think everyone took something different, and we just really enjoyed it. So thank you. But we kind of talked about just how Common Venture has really just impacted each person's life differently. How the culture of it is, you know, isn't just of our own. It's, you know, I think we kept reflecting on, you know, how we thought we were helping, but really we were serving. So that really resonated us. That title that you mentioned that, and then just how we got so much out of it. Well, I've never been on a Common Venture, but just, you know, and speaking on the group's behalf, everyone took a lot from it. You know, they were challenged. Multiple people in our group, I think, did multiple Common Ventures, and each one impacted them differently. And so a lot of growth and challenges from that. And just that seed that is already planted within each person to want to do something to have it grow. And so like that was one way Common Venture was able to assist in that, to be able to lead to where the heart is being called, and just overall joy coming from all of it, from the service, from the challenges, just the whole experience. You know, it's not something that's just fleeting, but joy is everlasting, and it comes from that service. So those were some of the themes that everyone mentioned, and then just talking about being motivated for the future in different ways. So I know we'll touch on that this afternoon.
Okay, thanks, Rosie. Janet May.
Well, I'm going to pick up from what Rosie said, because that whole thing of being challenged for the future, I think we had a common theme of the service really transformed us, and the pieces of Pat's talk that touched us were that service is mutual, power is meant to serve, and that we need to encounter people, like looking them in the eye and get behind their story, you know, not to judge. And so those values that we learned on Common Venture and in the service since then have prompted us to, whatever we're doing now, to be more aware of not judging, but entering into their lives and being willing to receive rather than us doing it all. And so it's been transformational for all of us. And we continue to be people of service with those new attitudinal changes. So the people really taught us. It's a mutual sharing of gifts.
Thanks, Janet. Anybody else? Oh, Ginny.
Well, we were in group 9, and I think the first thing we talked about were how the volunteers, many times volunteers, no matter if they were religious or lay women, most volunteers were seeking community and prayer. That came through very, very strong, as well as the service and that whole desire to volunteer and to make a difference. One of the big takeaways, I think, from Common Venture for all of us was it took away our stereotypes, and it moved us into deeper openness, in an openness to kind of move with the moment. Because in Common Venture, most Common Venture teams, you could not really plan the next day very well. Things always changed. So you had to be flexible and just live into the moments. And I think that was the whole notion of stereotypes being shattered was confirmed in how many people said it changed my life. So thank you, Pat, for your insightful words. And we are deeply grateful, not only for what your words, but the images you posted. They spoke volumes also. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Nancy Miller.
And I would just pick up kind of where Jenny concluded, is that the experiences really afforded us this wonderful opportunity to be exposed to cultures we would have never have been. and it moved us into some other insights. And that whole experience of mutuality and of gratitude that happened after the different experiences. And for some of us, it changed everything, or affirmed where the spirit was moving and said, oh my gosh, just was really a life-changing experience. And ironically, in looking here at this about 50 years later or so, realizing that some of us are back kind of where we started from. I'll say Mary Beth is back in Mississippi. I worked with immigrants back in '73, and I've been an advocate for immigrants for a long time now. And so you go, oh my gosh, and just a window into different faith and spiritualities. Carol Hawkins mentioned about that, and being receptive to the wonderful gifts and how that is so countercultural. And you express many of those things in your talk, Pat. We appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. I know we have a couple of hands up, but Lori, is there anything from the chat, comments or something that we should share?
Sure. Chuck put in a summary of his groups, it looks like, and I believe that was shared with everyone. So very thoughtful, reflective comments posted that people can read on their own. That was it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Mary Lechtenberg.
Kind of building on what Jenny said and Nancy, that so many of our associates, our friends, our sisters had the Common Venture experience. And that did change us, as many people have said, changed us as a congregation and moved us into something new attitudes and new life and new outlook and new spirituality, I would say. So what is it today? What do we need to experience today to continue that? So it's more of a question. How are we going to move into the future with some kind of common experience that will motivate us, move us, and help us to respond to the gospel, to Francis and Claire, and to Mother Xavier more wholeheartedly.
Okay. Kathy Knipper, did you have a comment or question?
Sure. I'll pick up on reiterating deep gratitude to Pat for wisdom and images. Our group really picked up on how our experiences of Common Venture were personal, and each of us were immersed in a culture or environment that we'd never been in before. And it certainly broadened our worldview, view of culture, and view of ourselves. And almost everyone reiterated, I learned this and this and this many years ago, and I applied it to another part of my life or another ministry situation. I was surprised, several said, of even though I gained that insight, how it came to be my teacher later on in my life. So many seeds were planted, and some came to fruition. So we're thankful for the opportunity to share those with one another today.
Okay. Any other groups that had something they wanted to report back? Okay, Chuck.
So let's see. Oh, I was just going to point out, but then Lori did that.
Oh, okay.
I was hearing many of the things we talked about. It triggered many thoughts. So they're in the chat, and so okay. I'll just do that and leave time for others to report.
I can give a short report from our group.
Okay,
I don't remember what number we were, but it was a lovely conversation that had so much to it. Thank you, Pat, for your sharing, because you really triggered a lot in all of us. I think I'll just I took some notes too, but I think I'll just comment on, a lot of it had to do with story and vulnerability and being side by side with the suffering and entering into that. But one thing that was shared had to do with the point on encounter. And we talked a little bit about your story, Pat, about the gentleman on the beach. And so kind of just going with the idea that we just never know. It wasn't like you did anything special to make that encounter happen, but that you were, so we just don't know when and where. So you were there. We just have to be open to go with the flow and be present and open to moments like that for encounter.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Anybody else? Okay, well, I can tell just even from the reports back and what was put in the chat that it was very rich conversations among all the groups. And so with that, I think we end our morning session a little bit early, which is good. You get a few more extra minutes to rest, relax, stretch, have some lunch. And we want to come back at 1 o'clock. So if you can start coming on a little bit before 1, that would be.
Oh no, breaking down was part of the whole experience.
I remember the drive back from Republic, Missouri, because we had gone blueberry picking. So I remember clearly we have these little boxes of blueberries sitting between us in the front seat, and I was like, okay, yeah.
Part of my vocation story happened on Common Venture, in that I was walking, we were down in the Gulf of Biloxi, and we were walking along on the beach. It was nighttime. I was walking with Pat Clement, and she asked me outright, she said, have you ever been thinking about being a sister? And then I thought I had it printed across my forehead that I was thinking of a sister, because she knew right away. So anyway, that was my original first part of my vocation story.
Does Pat Clement remember that, Mary Beth?
I don't know. I haven't talked to her recently about that, so I'll have to ask her.
Yes, you will. That'll be interesting to get her answer.
I believe we certainly did have some women who came to our community as a result of that, and began to know who sisters were and that we could be fun. And so I think it was a great promotion for vocation recruitment or vocation interest. I want to say recruitment, but vocation education about religious life too, for both of us. We learned from them too, to loosen up a bit.
I do think that was probably part of Marie Theresa's strategy in the whole Common Venture thing, that it could be a vocation promotion sort of thing, and that young women would get to know us.
Well, I credit Common Venture for bringing me to community. That's how I first got to know many of you, and then got to know Janet a little bit deeper.
Terry, can you push your camera up a little so we can see your mouth?
Sorry.
you
Okay. Yo, you can see this part. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, I
Can
know
you
I
see
can
me
credit
now?
my vocation to Common Venture as well.
Yeah. Where, Brenda?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh.
Well, Tulsa and also San Antonio, Texas. Carol Frecking was with me in San Antonio. And I
Yeah,
believe
my vocation as well, Pine Ridge. I'd been taught by just about every other community but Franciscans. That was my first encounter with Franciscans.
I found it interesting on some teams when there was a sister from another congregation with us too. I had that a couple of different times. That was an interesting experience as well.
Agree with that, Francis. Yes.
I was with Sister Connie Howe, the Mercy at Woodward, and I think of her fondly.
Well, I got an email from LaDonna Modernak. She had registered, and then yesterday she emailed because she's been elected their president. And she said, some other duties came that I have to take care of today. I feel really, really bad about missing it. She wanted to give her love and gratitude to all. She says, with special thanks to my Franciscan friends. So, you know, there's a way that the spirit of Francis does appeal to, you know, no matter what charism is your spiritual home, there's still something about the Franciscan piece that does speak to people, and certainly the collaboration that can happen.
This is always the scary part about this time of the day, when after you've had a long break, will people come back?
Yeah.
And you are. Welcome back, those of you who had some lunch.
Some of
No,
us are going on
as long as
12.
we don't feel too sleepy after our lunch.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to make sure that doesn't happen.
Good to see you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Jana Krieber, I was with
Hey,
you.
oh, I see. I was trying to figure out, I didn't see your picture, Janet. I thought I knew that voice.
Yeah, I was with you and Connie, and I still keep in contact with Dale Koski in Colorado.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That you are a faithful correspondent, Janet Krieber. I do admire that characteristic. It is a discipline which I fail to have. Hey, Janet,
Yes.
I was telling the other group how the Woodward experience landed me eventually serving adults with disabilities for 23 years. Do you claim any credit from the Woodward experience for your long service to people with, learning disabilities?
I don't know. I think I got mine from Wilma Dries when I worked with area residential care in Dubuque one summer.
Yeah.
I worked with young kids there, and I don't know if that was before I went to.
That would have been after. Because I think 74. 25 might be when we went to Woodward.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that must have been afterwards then, because I did work in Dubuque for 2 summers with Wilma, with the kids.
Uh-huh.
Then I had to make my decision if I was going to go with the library science or special ed.
See, you could have done both like me. I ended up 23 years with adults with disabilities, and then 8.5 years full-time at the library.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
folks,
I
I'm sorry.
ahead.
We are going to.
There's a party going on right here, a celebration to last through all the years. So bring your good times and your laughter too. We gonna celebrate your party with you. Come on. Celebration. Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Celebration. We're gonna celebrate and have a good time. It's time to come together. It's up to you. What's your pleasure? Everyone around the world, come on. Yeah. It's your celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Celebrate good times, come on.
There's a party going on right here, a celebration to last throughout the years.
So bring your good times and your laughter too.
We gonna celebrate your party with you. Come on now.
We're gonna have a good time tonight. Let's celebrate. It's alright. Celebrate good times, come on. Celebrate good times, come on. We gonna celebrate your party with you. Come on.
So, are you pumped up? I love this video, and I love the group that made this video, and lots of others. They're called Playing for Change. And they've invited musicians from around the world to form a network to create music together. And I think with some of their proceeds and things, they have set up music schools around the world. But they show that we are one, borders are arbitrary, and together we can make change. So if you want to see some more really cool videos, go to Playing for Change, that's all one word, playingforchange.com. We're going to have another fun poll, if Lisa can bring it up. And there's 3 questions to this poll, so you may have to kind of scroll down when it comes up to your screen to answer those 3 questions.
Okay, here we go. So the poll is now open. Hopefully you're seeing it. Here we go.
And remember to hit submit.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
It looks like for the second one, I wish there was a maybe, but if you don't check either one of those, you can't submit. Apparently.
So one can lean towards one or the other. Nobody is going to come to your doorstep and said you said yes and you signed a contract.
Okay.
That's right.
I was going to say they're anonymous, so we won't know who answered. Okay, 47 of 48 have responded.
Okay.
I'll give a couple more seconds here. And submit, well, last chance to submit. All right, and I'm going to share the results now. Okay, so have you ever been on a Franciscan Common Venture service trip? 89% said yes.
Ooh, all right.
Would you like to do more volunteer service work in the coming year? 83% said yes, although we may have a maybe in there.
Yep.
And then have you felt like you've been able to support your community this year despite the pandemic? 94% said yes.
All right. Thank you much. Well, Franciscan Common Venture is exploring new ways to do and be service together in the time that we live in. In looking to the future, it's good to review a little bit of the past and what's worked, you know, the fruits, what's important to carry forward, and also to dream of how this program may evolve. So we'd like to share a short video. It's about 8 minutes that give us some perspectives from long-term volunteer Abby Vogel, from former Common Venture coordinator Jane Shea, and from host site partner Sister Peggy O'Neill.
I think as well, something that FCV taught me or that planted in me and is still really growing is that realization. I think when I first came to Suchi, I very much thought of justice as something kind of out there, like a system that we correct or make more just, or a government that we kind of fix. And something beautiful about the experiences, and something that's really reflected in your answer too, is that these seeds and fruits are just much more relational than I think we tend to imagine, and much more abundant, and just much more, I don't know, much deeper and more complex and than I think we imagine, or than we're initially taught when we first start learning about justice. And that's even reflected in when I was doing this interview with Sister Shell. She asked about transformative experiences that I had when I was in El Salvador. And one that always comes to mind when I speak with people about my time is just hearing the story you told about when we were sitting. I think there were evenings I really enjoyed when we would finish work at the center and just kind of be sitting outside in the cafe, and the sun would be setting a little bit and we'd just be talking about the day. And one of those times you shared a story of when you decided to stay in El Salvador and you were hiding in the long grasses with a community of people, and there was a woman who was nursing, and you wanted her to keep the tortillas that she had been smart enough to grab when you were running to hide. And you wanted her to keep those. And she said, tonight we share our food, tomorrow we share our hunger. And just how transformative hearing that story has been for me in my life. It's just extraordinary, because if I were writing down experiences that I think would be transformative going to El Salvador, I likely wouldn't think like a conversation or a story could be a seed or a fruit. But those things really are those little interactions and relationships we have. And I just love that perspective that you shared to really emphasize that fact. Or I've been thinking a lot about, maybe that's one of the reasons that the journey for justice feels the way it does. Like we tend to think about it in cycles or in these movements that really are building on each other throughout time. And it can in some ways be quite just frustrating or tragic to think about how still far away from a truly just world we are in many ways. But I do feel a sense of wonder when I sit with just how much we collectively really have changed and transformed, and what a remarkable story that is of all those different just actions and lives of people building on each other to create this particular unique historical moment. And
felt that the religious community of women are really on the cutting edge of the Catholic Church. And so for a program like that, you know, starting in the 70s, I think it was, one, it pushed the community to move beyond being teachers in Iowa to other parts of the country, to other types of ministry. I think it was very unique that you included lay women in that type of work in a volunteer program, which allowed us to experience volunteering, community, prayer. So I really felt that it really shaped in different ways both the sisters as well as the lay women that participated in the program. And I think too, it was able, in a sense, kind of some cross-pollination. Like I would go to Pine Ridge and then I'd come back and I'd be, you know, at Briarcliff University in Sioux City, and some of those experiences I would take with me. So I really think that we were, I think, pushed to grow. And I wonder if, and I think about Franciscanism in the broader sense, not just the sisters, but the associates, anybody that was touched by the program, it really caused us to reflect on things like standing with those who are poor or the peacemaking piece. And I think it was a way to really live the Franciscan values that you know we were trying to live, but then you're really pushed to do that in that type of situation. I still think that there is a role for service and volunteering. You know, I feel that people are looking for a connecting point. And I think especially post-COVID, you know, we've all been locked down for so long, and that ability to get out and to interact. I also think some of our societal needs in the United States are more obvious, whether it's food security, access to healthcare. You know, we're really seeing where the vulnerable people live in our society. And so maybe, you know, post-COVID, whatever that world looks like, and hopefully we'll be able to move around a little bit, you know, there may be a greater interest in that type of service and outreach in our society. And I do hope that Common Venture continues in some way, whether it's a weekend program or, you know, I don't know how, you know, we respond, because our society's gotten so busy, but I'm wondering if the pandemic has forced people to stop and really take stock of what's important. And maybe, hopefully, you know, engagement and volunteering will be something that rises to the top.
I hope it evolves. I hope it's still alive. Keep emerging, new contexts, new needs, new ways of doing what we've done well for many, many years, for 50 already. The contexts are connected, there's no doubt about it, but they change more quickly. And you are a generation that has learned how to manage quick changes. So I just hope that we help you prepare for the world becoming smaller as it realizing its globalness. That's not a contradiction. I think it's with that spirit that Common Venture really has to connect it to the larger picture of what we call God, of what we call Trinity love, or what we call energy abounding, and love and connections, relationship. We praise God by building right relationships, the relationship with myself, the relationship with others. And that's the heart of the Common Vision. That's what will continue. How it will continue is not in our hands totally, but it will continue. It will continue. Yeah. Even if there are fewer and fewer Franciscan sisters, it'll find a way to continue because it's bigger than institutions. It's bigger than, it's legacy. You know, legacy, that's what it is. The legacy will continue.
Well, just as the organization Playing for Change has developed a network of musicians of every age across the globe, Franciscan Common Venture is seeking to meet, as we are seeking to meet the needs of today, we're looking to create a network, a supportive community of volunteers that can connect locally, nationally. So when you registered for today's event, you were asked to select your preference of a general service area for part of our discussions today. So we're now going to break into those small discussion groups. Each group should have a facilitator who has a copy of the questions. But again, like the last time, we'll post those questions in your group for a little bit. The facilitators do have those questions with them. You'll have about 40 minutes for your conversation. And when we come back to the large group, we'll hear a report out. You'll be given notice when there's about 10 minutes or 5 minutes left so that you can kind of pull your ideas together, you know, to wrap up your sharing. And what we're asking you to come back with is 1 or 2 ideas for service that your group surfaced, that you have a lot of energy around or seems most important to you. And I'm just going to read the questions now, but they'll be posted again. What do you think that the Common Venture Volunteer Program should prioritize in the coming year? What resources or organizations do you know about that could be helpful or potential host sites for volunteer teams? What forms of volunteer networking would be most helpful? And how might we engage more young adults and parishes in Franciscan Common Venture service? So you may not get to every single question, kind of go where the energy of the group is, but we offer all of those and to have a report back of the 1 or 2 things that seem most important that your group wants the whole group to know. And I've asked facilitators, if you are not taking notes, to have somebody else in your group take the notes. When you come back, those 1 or 2 things could be put in chat, but I would like to get a copy of all the notes so you can email those to me. And I know facilitators have my email there, but we can talk about that later. So Lisa, are you ready?
I am ready. So I think this will automatically move you to your assigned groups. And so here we go. We are all back now.
We're all back? Okay. So we're just going to take some time to share from, you know, somebody from your group, whether it's the moderator or someone else, 1 or 2 ideas that was most interesting to your group that came up either, you know, in answer to any one of those questions. And again, if you want to put, you know, those main ones in the chat, but also to email the notes, because you probably, like in the group I was in, we talked about a lot of things and then came up with, you know, well, this is what we want to report back. So I don't want to lose any of those ideas. So be sure and email them. And you all should have my email because I sent you an email on Wednesday. So why don't we go with Lori Apple's group?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks, Shel. Yeah, I had a great conversation with my group. Lots of positive energy, lots of great ideas. And the one that they landed on, I'll share with you now. To establish more short-term service opportunities while networking with existing organizations to assist in needs of the organization, needs of the city, in an effort to provide service. Okay, so some takeaway: short-term networking with existing organizations, and then we would help provide service. Okay, so not only would that be here in Dubuque and the Dubuque County area, but also have other opportunities in communities such as Chicago, Sioux City, that could be like satellite places for service opportunities. And, you know, the mountain, the organizational piece could kind of be the hub. Now, one thing that came up that I think is a wonderful idea is when the volunteers would provide service and be out in the community, they would wear the gold Franciscan Common Venture yellow t-shirt. I think, Shel, you have yours on today, right?
Yep, I do.
And that would create visibility, awareness of Franciscan Common Venture. And as the group continues providing service, you know, people are going to say, hey, the Yellow Gang was out today again. Did you see them? I saw them at the food pantry. Gosh, they just rock it out with all their wonderful service opportunities they provide. So, for example, some of the opportunities that could be provided should be like as needed, like, you know, food pantry. Okay, there's a shortage this week. One member had a great idea with cleanup on roadways, and maybe a stretch of roadway could be designated Franciscan Common Venture roadway cleanup area. And then the gang of people would have their yellow shirts on and, you know, creating this, again, this visibility and awareness. It could also provide kind of short turnaround assistance with a storm cleanup. I think you had on one of your slides, Shel, a group, it was a pretty large group, went to, oh shoot, help me out, what was it?
Joplin.
In Missouri, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, you know, you might think, well, how would this work? So the group suggested if you had the list of Common Venture volunteers that would be willing to kind of be on call for service opportunities, create this email group, you know, this database of these people, and when the need arises, then they are emailed and made aware of the service opportunities. Kind of like Nancy Miller's action alerts, kind of like that, like what is really relevant and necessary in the here and now. So.
Okay, thank you. And I see that Kathy Glatz has her hand up.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'll try to be brief. So one of our themes was to get to put in place some new models of how we do this. And one thing would be that if you have someone long-term doing Common Venture somewhere, that you have a mentor for that person who might, someone from the outside who could meet with them once a month to just help them process what they're going through. Maybe they could vent or whatever they needed to do. Another one would be a new part of a new model would be to have a group of people work with Sister Shel to come up with new sites in different areas of Iowa, different areas of the US. Also to have them maybe work to figure out if there are groups of people wanting to do a Franciscan Common Venture. Along with that, we talked about trying to match interests with service in a way, like the summer program in Okolona. If there are teachers in training at a college, maybe they want to spend a week of their summer working at this, what do they call it? Summer school, whatever they call it down there. It would be great for their resume. But I think we have to market a little different, because maybe if we just say, well, would you as a college student go on a service week? They might not. But if we say, hey, you know, if you're in this major and you're interested in this, how would you like to volunteer here for a week? I think that's a little different selling. And we also talked about how do we involve people of other races? And one of our ideas was to go through the local NAACP chapters to see if there are things we could do with them. Either have them as volunteers with us going somewhere, or something that they could need that we could supply for them as a site.
Okay, thank you. Rosie's group, Rosie Guerrero's group.
Hello. So I feel like we had a wonderful discussion and lots of different things came up. So there'll be plenty of notes for you, sister. But I think what we kind of landed on was basically bringing more awareness of FCV to different areas. And so we kind of, one of the first things we talked about though was getting more young people involved. So those that might be like middle school to high school age, kind of getting them involved, being able to instill some of the Franciscan, teachings and kind of provide that Franciscan lens, if you will, so that they can kind of be exposed and grow up with that, and then service can be a part of what they do. But also trying to create more of a continuous year-round idea of service versus just having the FCV during the summer or whatever it may be, but more of continuous year-round activities. And then just in order to bring that awareness of what FCV is taking opportunities like at the Shalom Center, if they have a group there, kind of someone from FCV going and speaking to them and inviting them. But we would have to identify some of our needs beforehand, what potential locations or collaborative works we have going on. They could be non-Catholic groups, just bringing that awareness of, would you like to form an FCV team? And then another thing that we kind of mentioned and really dove in on was just kind of reaching out to parishes and offering to form an FCV team with parish like social justice groups. And so someone again going and sharing and teaching them about what it means, and hopefully creating something out of that to make sure that we provide that education and connecting service to the prayer component, like a very holistic approach, if you will. So our theme was creation. That was our group. So we kind of referred to a lot of gardening or creating gardens or assisting in a garden, parishes during that, or finding other groups. I think most of our those that were in our small group were from the Dubuque area, so different Dubuque locations were provided. So it sounds like we already have a lot of parishes that are strong in service, and it's kind of just finding ways to bring them together with Franciscan Common Venture. And I know we mentioned, things like the Sister Water Project, is there a way we can collaborate on that? Not sure how that's all set up, but just things to keep in mind, for future discussion as well. So I'll include that in the notes. And if I missed anything, anyone from my small group is welcome to share.
Hey, thanks, Rosie. Brenda.
Well, kind of following up on what Rosie was saying, our group also talked about maybe shorter term service opportunities, local, parish-wide or citywide or whatever. Anyway, starting out on a local level, building relationships, and that can be done, you know, by getting to know priests or youth group ministers, or you know, entering into already existing groups, and then just kind of seeing where that might take us, involving families, which would be good at a parish level. And then that way there's consistency. If it's only a 2 or 3 hour service project, then, you know, maybe a month later, there might be another service project. It builds community within the church, within the neighborhood, within a city, and it also provides longer term opportunities, and pretty cost efficient, I think, as well. We had also discussed different existing organizations with which maybe we could partner, such as the Annunciation House, or I can't remember what the other place was in McClellan, Texas. Catholic Charities, the Iowa City Catholic Worker, or the Mustard Seed, Rotary clubs, you know, continuing on with maybe something in Honduras, Suchitoto, working in soup kitchens. So we had really great conversation, and I think what everyone has shared thus far, we pretty much touched on, so I won't repeat. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Miller.
Yeah, I'll just highlight maybe 1 to 3 things that we talked about. One of those was to really look at having a Franciscan Common Venture team in Honduras and create the structure so that you really do get volunteers from Honduras, either associates or others, or either Guatemalan associates, to have the Franciscan Common Venture team, and to create a structure so that it can happen there, and that certainly some international travel and is more possible. Also, the reality of availability of workers is because people are unemployed, and just as one of the persons from Honduras says, just has more time in their hands in a different reality to look at recruiting from local to really support a local Franciscan Common Venture team, and probably be Spanish speaking. Another couple of things is certainly looking at networking with others to do Franciscan down on the border, or along with that, even to explore in whatever state you're in, is that we know that we still have, not just Texas, but other places have detention centers for immigrants. To explore if a team could do pastoral visits at a local, in the case Cedar Rapids is Lynn County, and they provide housing for ICE, for people who ICE has picked up, to see if they can't do visitations. And I don't know, we know that there could be a lot of red tape, but I mean, that can be done more locally, and looking at that. I think 1 or 2 other things that give a little different and that haven't really been said is to look up, well, certainly other partners with this, and is already been mentioned, but maybe even explore with the Nuns versus Nuns group. You know, because they talk about spirituality, and we know they've been in the news a lot. So it'd be interesting to see if they're interested in participating somewhere. Another idea, and I think it's another approach to looking at this, is either where our sisters or associates are, is to look where there could be a common space or available space for a common venture team of 5 people to come together for a weekend. And then in advance is look at what volunteer opportunities are available there, And then if you get the yellow shirts or some other way to identify that, it takes a little bit of research at the local level. But for those who don't have a lot of time, but could do it over a weekend or even a week, but you'd have that space where you could create community. And I think just with one other thing is, once again, maybe to continue looking at how you could do some kind of short-term like support via the internet. Like if families with children with disabilities or something, and do compare, kind of might look like a support group, but it's also a way of creating those relationships, doing it via internet with people who can share that experience. And just one other last posing question is, and this is not an answer to your question, but to look at a potential answer to the question is, as we emerge out of this pandemic, what are the new needs that could be identified, and maybe convene a Common Venture team if some of that would be possible for them to provide some services that are kind of more in an emergent capacity.
Okay, thank you. Francis Nasbish's group.
We talked for a bit about which age groups basically, and saw that either generally older folks, retired folks may have more time and may have more money to do some things, or if we can work with colleges and universities to help younger people to get credits for their programs and so on. But then specifically, we zeroed in on kind of 3 areas. Needs at the border is going to continue for quite a while. And so that would seem to be a good area to prioritize. Secondly, because we've had our sisters in Mississippi now for quite some time, that will still be an area that we could do common venture teams. And then the other one that we talked about is with First Nation peoples in the larger Sioux City area, and into Nebraska, like Winnebago, or into South Dakota and so on, for a bit of the longer term ones. And of course, we also support the idea of local day programs wherever that would work. And of course, whatever kind of networking with organizations who could help in these different areas. But I think that pretty much is a main focus that we zeroed in on.
Okay, thank you, Francis. How about Nancy Knipper's group?
Okay, we talked a lot about things that were already mentioned. The thing that we wanted to mention to the group is if Common Venture could go towards like a mentoring. So maybe we go through an existing program already and have maybe mentoring a person once a week, or reading to a child or visiting an elderly person, and then building that relationship throughout a couple months, or once a week, once a month, whatever it is, as we look at our bodies that are aging, to be in more of that relationship mentoring process. And we talked about maybe like through a St. Vincent de Paul or Salvation Army, also going there maybe once a week and serving there in any way that we could. But so if I'm going into like our Dream Center, for example, in an after school program, maybe I'm going in with several other volunteers, and so the volunteers can, we go in together, and we can also have that community building time with one another and that support with one another as we do our service. So that was just one idea, but I will send the rest to you.
Okay, thank you. Chuck Glatz's group.
Kathy already reported for us.
Oh, she did?
That was our group, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did you want me to report again?
No, that's okay. Because I thought the 2 of you were in different groups, but that's okay.
I did too, but we weren't.
Okay, Mary Fisher's group.
So a lot of the things that have already been talked about also were
talked about in our group, talked about, you know, encouraging younger, maybe even younger than college age students to participate in service projects. A lot of times in schools, service is already a part of their mission, but maybe infusing Franciscan values and going about it that way. Encouraging, in high school, they have college fairs, and maybe being asking to be a part of that, so that volunteerism and Common Venture are included on those college fair days. Confirmation programs are usually centered around some kind of service, and using Common Venture themes, you know, contacting parishes and religious ed programs to see if youth groups would like to be involved, and encouraging younger and younger people. And in parishes, you know, encouraging families to participate in service together, to make it part of their life. We briefly talked about a couple different groups, you know, that maybe being part of those groups. Sister Carol Hawkins talked about a JPIC group, which is in Honduras. It's Justice, Peace, and Integration of Creation. I'd never heard of it, but it sounded really interesting. And then Sister Carol Hamasath talked about Bread for the World, which their mission is to get bread to feed everyone in the world. So otherwise, everything else that has been talked about was also talked about with us. Using social media, since more and more younger people are on social media, using that kind of platform for Common Venture as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Is there any group that did not report out?
My group, and Shirley Olberding is our speaker.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
You're welcome.
Okay, some of the things have already been said, but we talked a lot about parish networking, that we maybe have to stop at the parish level and get, we thought the group to go through there would probably be the Peace and Justice Committee. And that, you know, we talked about the three in the mission statement, you know, obviously paying attention to the Mother Earth and to, can't say that.
Standing with those who are
the
poor.
Water Project, and then standing with the whole racism thing. And as we talked about that, we wondered whether there was an area where the Shalom Center could kind of be the gathering place for exchanging ideas. When I was thinking about this after our time was up, we did something with our Haiti committee. We used to do once a year, that the people in the Archdiocese of Dubuque who had a Haiti connection, a sister parish, we would get together and share ideas. And I wonder if that's something, I just thought now maybe that could be something that could take place at the Shalom Center. It could be representatives from the different peace and justice committees throughout our archdiocese or out our area, and share ideas of what we're doing or how we're doing it. So that was just an afterthought that came up in my mind. We also talked about the associates as well as the Peace and Justice Committee being part of that connection to our parishes. And of course, like the other committees did, the youth, that we have to zero in on youth because they're the ones who are going to face the consequences of what we're doing today. And we talked about having people, you know, seeing if we can organize events at the high schools, perhaps, where speakers can come in to their agricultural classes, for example, and speak to them about what farmers could be doing to protect our earth and what they in the future could be doing if they go into that profession. We talked a little bit about senior care centers, whether there might be some people there who are concerned about what's the future brings for their grandchildren and how they might get involved in some way. I know at Beckman here, we have service projects that the kids do. It occurred to me then while I was looking over the notes, have we ever had students, high school students, take part in any common venture services or not?
Not usually.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking, I got thinking, well, we haven't been able to go to Haiti now for 3 years, and we always took our high school students with us. And I thought, well, maybe that'd be something they could do with some adults in place of, but I don't know. That's entirely, I guess that's the common venture organization that has to decide that, but it would be a possibility perhaps. And the other point that was brought up at some point, you know, we teach and we teach and we teach and we talk about what we should be doing. And at some point we have to get to the point of doing rather than talking about it, hitting the streets, so to speak. I think those were probably the main ideas that came from our group.
Okay, thanks, Shirley. Brenda, did you have a comment or question?
You know, I do. We did not discuss this, and I didn't hear anyone else mention it. But, you know, sometimes finances are an issue. So I was wondering if there might be a way to encourage parishes or even our religious community to provide scholarships so that it doesn't strain families financially or students who truly do have a desire to want to do service, but you know, they have to look at finances. So that's just an aside.
Okay, thanks, Brenda. I think we're going to take about a 15-minute break right now. And I know Rosie, Lisa, and myself, I don't think Abby is on right now, but we're gonna get into a little breakout room while you guys have a break. So get up, stretch your arms, stretch your legs. We're gonna have a conversation, the three of us, and we will come back in 15 minutes. Okay, as people are coming back, I'm just going to remind you to either place your notes in the chat feature or email them to me on what your group came up with. That would be very, very helpful.
I don't know if everybody automatically, I just got bumped back sort of automatically for some reason. I don't know if our group was.
It was time to close the rooms.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Then I'm in the right spot.
Yes.
You are in the right spot.
Okay, I like that. It's a rare moment in my life.
Okay, is everybody back, Lisa?
I think so. We're about 39 now, Shell.
We're dwindling, but it's a good group. It's a good group.
Yes, it is.
What we'd like to do now, you know, the future of Common Venture isn't up to the coordinator alone. It does take a village. And we've had some very rich conversations this afternoon. You know, for things for us to consider as we do move forward. We'd like to do one last poll today, and it's not necessarily a fun one, but it can be. You will once again have an opportunity to invest yourself in the Common Venture legacy, as Sister Peggy called it. There's going to be 5 choices, and they're pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of like a pledge, how you pledge to invest in the legacy of Common Venture moving forward. So to pledge to be part of a network community of volunteers around your preferred area of service, to do service once a month in your preferred area of service, to share with others about the program, to invite 1 or 2 people to do service with you, or to do service and to connect with the Common Venture community members in your pledge level once a month. So you've got, and this is multiple choice, so I believe you're able to select more than one thing. I'm hoping. if I read the Zoom correction instructions correctly. So Lisa, if you want to
Okay,
launch the poll.
I've launched it. And you can click as many as you like, as Shell said. Okay, so we've have about 28 people who have responded, and it looks like we're sort of stuck at that number. So a few more seconds if you still would like to make a choice. Okay, I'm ending. Oh, got a 29th. Oh, just slipped in under the wire. Great. Okay, I'm closing the poll then. And so I don't know, Shell, do you want to have me report out on these? Share results?
Actually, I can see it.
Oh, cool.
For some reason, it showed up this time.
Oh, good.
So 52% want to be part of a network or community of volunteers, 21% to do service once a month in your preferred area. 76% want to share with others about the program. 59% invite 1 or 2 people to do service with you, and 28% to do service and connect with community members in your pledge level. And the reason we have that is this was not an anonymous poll. So I know who said what, so that those who want to connect, I'm going to be able to help connect you. So that was our one non-anonymous poll today. Okay, I think you can close that.
And I did. So if you're still seeing it, Shell, you may have to close it.
Okay, there we go. All righty. And I'm aware of the time, but I still would like to take just a couple of minutes if there's anybody who wants to just share a word or two, that's very brief, about one thing you learned today, one thing you're grateful for from today, or that you take away with you. Or you can put it in the chat.
This gives me a lot of hope.
I was re-energized by the interest and the passion that was expressed.
Gratitude for all of the people who have led and been on Common Venture, and for the people that received teams, and just very grateful for the people that have made this possible.
I too am very grateful for all the opportunities that have been so formative and transformative in our own community, and associates and others that we know are not in this circle. And my hope is that similar opportunities, we know it can be transformative, that we can continue to encourage people, no matter what age they are, is to do volunteer services with the community and continue to see it as a future. This is a future, and it's been a wonderful gift.
Okay, that's just kind of a sampling. I just want to remind all the note takers from whenever you were taking notes to please email them to me. These are going to be seriously reviewed, and as we forge the path forward. I'll work with follow-up as this unfolds. Probably on Monday, I will send out a link for an online evaluation that we ask you to complete. And as always, I invite you to share with others about Common Venture and to feel free to email me with questions or with ideas. I can't guarantee that, you know, in a month's time, I can implement them all, but it's nice to have ideas and input and some people out there who really want to move this forward that I too can work with. You know, the Common Venture office is one person, even though I'm part of a charism team. This part is my responsibility. But there's a lot of you to be engaged in carrying it out into the future. And so as I look back at this day, I'm like, wow, what a great day together of celebrating this very significant milestone. And I'm very happy you could join us today. And I think it would not be a Franciscan gathering without a special prayer to send us on our way. And so we want to acknowledge once again that we wouldn't be here today celebrating 50 years if it were not for Sister Marie-Therese, who, you know, in her exuberance and just energy, launched this program. She planted the seeds, not knowing if it would grow, but still trusting that they would. And so the Franciscan Common Venture program has grown and evolved over these 50 years and has remained faithful to the core values of prayer, community, and service done in a Franciscan spirit. We had hoped to be part of our anniversary celebrations to have had a ritual in which we would plant a red oak tree on the Mount St. Francis grounds in honor of Marie-Therese. The tree hasn't arrived yet. You know, with the pandemic, all the deliveries are delayed. The tree hasn't come yet. But what a fitting symbol, both of Marie-Therese and the Common Venture program. You know, just some of the facts about red oaks. It grows more than 2 feet a year for 10 years. It has great fall colors that offers us beauty. It tolerates pollution and compacted soil, provides shade and food for God's creatures. It can live to be 500 years old, but more commonly 150. So you know what? We only have 100 more years to go to be with the likes of the red oak. All of these traits mirror the mighty MT, as we like to call her, and how the Common Venture program has endured through all kinds of weather. So for our closing prayer, please remain muted. There will be a response to make later in the prayer. We'll have a reader speak the response, and you can speak the response while muted, and we'll have some gestures to go with that I'll run us through. So once again, let's just take a moment of silence to breathe in all the goodness and gifts of this day, and to exhale all of the goodness and the gifts out to the world. Breathe in with all the gifts of this day, and breathe out the gratefulness that our hearts hold.
Most High, good God, we are gathered together in your spirit of love and solidarity. Open us to your inspiration as we strive to answer your call, to be instruments of your peace in the world, and to live out your sense of justice with compassion for all creation.
We pray to be holy fools like St. Francis of Assisi, free from insecurities and fears, to do your work wherever we are. Be with us and guide us on our journey. Amen.
In responding to the call to be of service in our everyday lives, we seek to embrace and live out the Franciscan values.
Conversion. The very heart of the Franciscan way.
Prayer and contemplation. living a reflective life, seeing the face of God in all.
Poverty. Giving and receiving all as gift. Having open and generous hearts.
Minority. Striving to be humble like Christ. Living in solidarity.
Community. Fostering loving relationships with all of creation.
And now it is time for our Great Commissioning. On behalf of the Sisters of St. Francis of Dubuque, we really thank you and appreciate your attending today's celebration. And just as Jesus sent his disciples out into the world to preach the gospel and announce God's reign through their deeds of service, so too St. Francis, the poor man of Assisi, answered the call to journey into the world, serving others in solidarity. We recognize your own embrace of God's invitation to humble service, embodying the Franciscan values wherever you are and in whatever way you can. Thank you.
As each general area of service is named, those who have pledged to participate in that area at whatever level, please hold both hands open in a gesture of giving of yourself. And while still muted, pray the response along with Sister Brenda and follow the gestures of each phrase of the response. So when we get to that, when it says, with my one heart, your right hand over your heart, my two hands, your hands outward, and a bottomless hope, spread out those hands to show that there's a lot of hope. And so, those who have pledged some level of service promoting creation care.
Teach me to do with my one heart and my two hands and my bottomless hope. Help me to be committed, to be courageous, and to be converted all the days of my life.
Those who have pledged some level of service promoting peace and nonviolence.
Teach me what to do with my one heart and my two hands and my bottomless hope. Help me to be committed, to be courageous, and to be converted all the days of my life.
And those who have pledged some level of service promoting economic and social equity.
Teach me what to do with my one heart and my two hands and my bottomless hope. Help me to be committed, to be courageous, to be converted all the days of my life.
And let us close with our anniversary prayer. You may silently pray along with our readers.
Loving Creator, our hearts are full of gratitude and praise as we celebrate 50 years of the many gifts shared with us during Franciscan Common Venture through prayer, community, and service.
Thank you for the gifts of openness and willingness to travel and risk new experiences, to share our culture and learn from those with different lives and dreams, to grow in community with our Common Venture team and with those who shared our work and play.
We learn to move out of our comfort zone and into the world of another person, to be led and changed by stepping into an unknown and facing our fears, to answer the gospel call of being in right relationship with creation, with those we serve and those with whom we share community.
We were called to go forth in mutuality and solidarity. In answering that call, we were transformed and received so much more than we gave.
Your spirit profoundly touched our hearts through our communal experience of service and still continues to shape and challenge us today.
Each day, you call us to find new ways to plant the seeds of service. Today, we ask that just as we responded then, we may always be open to your call and to the hidden fruits of justice along the paths of our life. Amen.
Know that we send you forth with our gratitude, love, prayers, and support. As we opened our hands in a gesture of giving of ourselves when commissioned, we invite you now to open your hands again in a gesture of receiving the Franciscan blessing.
May God bless you and keep you. The light of God's face shine upon you. May God be gracious to you. May God look on you kindly. May God fill you with peace.
And of course, any event has a list of thank yous. First and foremost, the Spirit for her guidance all of these years. For Marie Therese for launching this program 50 years ago, and the Dubuque Franciscan Sisters for their ongoing support through many evolutions. For all of our Common Venture volunteers and the communities you served. For all of our participants today. For Sister Pat Farrell and her challenging and inspiring message to us. For our prayer readers and small group facilitators. For Sister Maxine Lavelle and Sister Margaret Wick for archival assistance. For Sister Janice Hoffman for the logo. Jane Shea for the prayer. For Jessie Russo and all her assistants with publicity. For Melody O'Connor and the monumental task of getting all volunteer lists into a usable database. For our planning committee, Rosie Guerrero, Mary Fisher, Chuck Glatz, and Abby Vogel, whose ideas in countless meetings gave shape and meaning to this day. For Lori Apple and her assistants monitoring the chat questions and comments. For Lisa Landgraf, our Zoom manager, without whom we could not have done all that we did this day. You really made the technology work for us. And I'm sure I've left someone out, unintentionally, of course, but a thanks to all who helped in any way to make this day a reality. We'd like to close with a song called Do Something. And also afterwards, we're going to leave it open till, can you stay a little bit after 4 if people want to chat we wanted to give you about like a half hour for anybody left who wanted to chat with other people on there. So if nobody stays, we can close out. Otherwise, we'll go for a little bit past 4 because we are running a little bit late. But thank you, and send you off with this wonderful song.
Woke up this morning, saw a world full of trouble now. I thought, how do we ever get so far down? And how's it ever gonna turn around? So I turned my eyes to heaven. I thought, God, why don't you do something? Well, I just couldn't bear the thought of people living in poverty, children sold into slavery. The thought disgusted me, so I shook my fist at heaven. I said, God, why don't you do something? He said, I did. Yeah. I created 'Cause if not us, then who? If not me and you right now. Well, it's time for us to do something. Yeah. If not now, then when will we see an end to all this pain? Oh, it's not enough to do nothing. It's time for us to do something. I'm so tired of talking about how we are God's hands and feet, but it's easier to say than to be. Live like angels of apathy who tell ourselves it's all right, somebody else will do something. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of life with no desire. I don't want a flame, I want a fire. I want to be the one who stands up and says, I'm gonna do something. If not us, then who? If not me and you right now. It's time for us to do something. Yes, it is. Come on. If not now, then when will we see an end to all this pain? Oh, oh. Well, it's not enough to do nothing. It's time for us to do something. We are the salt of the earth. We are a city on a hill. We're never gonna change the world by standing still. No, we won't stand still. No, we won't stand still. No, we won't stand still. No. If not us, then who? If not me and you right now. It's time for us to do something. If not now, then when will we see an end to all this pain? Well, it's not enough to do nothing. It's time for us to do something. It's time for us to do something.